flat tariff as a successful end to the negotiation.
Okay, Christine Romans, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Still ahead, inside CDC headquarters, less than 2 weeks after that deadly shooting, what the director says about the reeling agency. Plus, drama at a soccer match, but not on the field. The chaos in the stands next. To new pictures tonight from inside the CDC. Less than 2 weeks after a gunman shot at the agency's main campus in Atlanta. You can see some of the damage here, bullet holes in what's said to be blast-resistant glass. The gunman fired something like 180 shots, breaking about 150 windows. Remember, one police officer was killed. The new pictures coming as the Trump administration escalates its purge of federal workers, with as many as 600 staff members getting final layoff notices. That's according to a union for the workers. About 100 of those staffers are experts on violence prevention. Priya Sridhar joins us now to talk more about this. And Priya, the CDC director today was touring the damage caused in the shooting. What did she have to say about the attack and about these layoffs?
Yeah, Ryan, I think an important thing to remind our viewers about this specific attack is that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation actually said that when they conducted a search of the suspected gunman's house, of course, he died in the shooting, they found several documents where he really outlined his concern with the COVID-19 vaccine. He had told a number of his neighbors who we had spoken to that he believed that the COVID-19 vaccine made him sick, I should say. So in the aftermath of this attack, many CDC workers, both current and former, that I spoke to said that they were not surprised, sadly, by this attack. They felt like their profession has essentially been under attack since the beginning of this year, beginning with many of those layoffs. And this was kind of the physical manifestation of all of that. Now, today, as you mentioned, Dr. Susan Monterez did do a tour of the different buildings on campus that were essentially shot up. And what I think was interesting, Ryan, was not what she said, but what she didn't want to talk about. Take a listen.
What do you have to say back to them about that letter that was written and blaming anti-vaccine rhetoric on this?
We're trying to stay germane to this. Can we not get into that today? Thank you.
Yeah, my focus right now is really on the healing of our staff. What we're trying to do with our staff is make sure that they have the resources that they can access and they can talk about their experiences and they can get the support that they need.
So there, Ryan, she's talking about this letter that was written to Health and Human Services Secretary, I should say, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that was written yesterday by 750 former and current public health professionals, many of them who currently work at the CDC, essentially asking for him to apologize for spreading inaccurate health information. As you know, he has famously said repeatedly that he believes that the COVID-19 vaccine is deadly and that COVID-19 itself was a quote-unquote bioweapon. All of those statements are not obviously based in science. But today, when asked that question by a reporter, she didn't want to address it directly. And it was very interesting because in a virtual town hall with her current employees, which was obviously for internal purposes only, she did say that she believed that this was a targeted attack and it was conducted because of misinformation. And she repeated that sentiment in a letter that was sent out to 10,000 CDC employees, Ryan.
Okay, Priya, thank you for that report. We appreciate it. We are going to move now to some breaking news. That's where President Trump is at the U.S. Park Police Anacostia Operations Facility in Washington, joining local police and National Guard troops ahead of their patrol in the city. It's all part of his so-called crime crackdown. He's there with Stephen Miller, his deputy chief of staff, and Pam Bondi, the attorney general. Let's go to Monica Alba, who's also tracking this movement by the president. Monica, give us the latest update.
Yeah, Ryan. So as you can see there are about 100 or more law enforcement personnel. I'll send it back to you to listen in here to the president.
Okay, let's see.
The Capitol, it's going to be the best in the world. We're going to do what you're doing with law enforcement. And very importantly, also, we're going to physically do it. We're going back to Congress for some money, and we're going to redo a lot of the pavement, a lot of the medians, a lot of the graffiti's all coming off real fast. It's going to come down real fast. We're working with Clark Construction. They're one of the big ones. They're the biggest here by far, actually. And we're going to be not so much building, it's cleaning and fixing and redoing and putting brand new surfaces down on your roads and streets. And when people come in from the airport all the way to the Capitol or the White House or any place else they go, and they're going to say, boy, this place is spotless. So we're doing that. Most importantly, though, we're going to have a crowd of people that are going to be happy. You know, I've received more phone calls from people in the last 4 days than I ever have. I've been here now 4 years plus. And by the way, I think we had about the best 7 months, they're saying, that any president's had. We've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of good work, including the biggest tax cuts that you've ever had. I know you guys don't care about taxes, so you don't care about saving a little tax, but you saved a lot of tax, actually. But we've had a great period of time. But I've never received so many phone calls thanking me for what we've done in Washington, D.C., from people that haven't gone to a restaurant literally in 4 years. And they said, you know, what you've done it's unprecedented, because what they said, it was just unsafe. We couldn't do it. We'd go out and you'd see the stories, you'd read the stories, you'd see all of the things that are happening. And they said, we couldn't stand it, sir. And now I take my wife and my kids to dinner. One of them said he's gone out 4 nights in a row, and he hadn't gone out for 4 years. So it's a great tribute to you. And when I look at you people, I understand why, because there's no games, right? We're not playing games. We're going to make it safe. And we're going to then go on to other places. But we're going to stay here for a while. We want to make this absolutely perfect. It's our capital. And I guess it used to be many years ago safe, but it's certainly not had a very good run. And you got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to do your job. Whatever it takes to do your job, you got to do your job. But the crime numbers are way down. I'm looking at, you saw some of the stats, they just read them out to me inside, the numbers that we haven't seen here ever, actually ever. And I think it's probably, right now, to me, I feel very safe now, and I'm hearing people are very safe, but I know within 2 weeks it's going to be, Pam, it's going to be at a level that's even far superior. So I just wanted to thank you all. You're doing incredible. You're incredible people. You make the country run, frankly. You make the whole place run. We're going to have the best Capitol ever. We're going to have it's going to look better than it ever did. Even at the White House, I'm building a ballroom. They've been after a ballroom for 150 years, but they never had a real estate guy as a president. You know, I've done a lot of ballrooms, and we're going to make this one the best of them all. But we're doing a real job. As far as the country's concerned, we're respected again. We had a country that was laughed at a year ago. They thought they couldn't understand what was happening, and it's about leadership. But we had a country that was a dead country in many ways. I went to Saudi Arabia. I went to Qatar. I went to UAE. We came back with $5.1 trillion of investment in this country. And we're over 17 trillion. Now, a lot of you don't know what that means. And nobody knows what it means because it's never happened before. In 5 months, because really it's a 5-month, even though we're here 7, but we started 5 months ago in terms of investment. And we have, because they see what's happened to our country, we're going to be over 17 trillion with a T, dollars of investment. There's never been anything close. If we did 1 trillion in a year, and we're talking about over a 5-month period, maybe 6 months if you look at it, but over $17 trillion. We're building plants, auto plants, AI plants, all sorts of plants all over the country. I'm giving them the right. Lee Zeldin's done a fantastic job. We give them the right to build electric plants. They become almost like a public utility because we have old grids. We have a lot of stuff that's old. We wouldn't be able to compete with China AI. And now we're totally leading the AI race. And the artificial intelligence, it's a big deal. And it's the hottest thing there is for probably in 35, 40 years. It's a lot of people don't know what it is. Just trust me, it's very hot. It's big. But they need massive amounts of electricity. They need more electricity than we have right now in the whole country servicing everything. In other words, we have to at least double it up to be competitive and to be leading. And we're more than doubling it up. And what I'm doing is I'm letting all of these very rich companies, and they've got nothing but they got a lot of money, and they want to invest it in the United States, and they're building big plants, but they're building electric plants with it. I said, you build your building, and these are buildings that cost 30, 40, 50 billion dollars when you include everything that's inside, all the technology. I said, I'm going to let you build electric plants to fire your own electricity, and anything that you have left over, you sell it back into the grid. So all of these big factories that are being built are building their own electric plants fired by oil and gas. They're not fired by wind, by the way, because wind doesn't work, but we won't say that. It destroys everything. It looks terrible. It's a very expensive form of energy. And we're not doing wind. We're going back to fossil fuel. I hope not too many of you people are going to be upset, but we have to go back to what works. We can't be
Okay,
foolish.
we'll continue to monitor President Trump's remarks here as he is talking to some of the law enforcement officers and National Guard troops that have brought in as part of his crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. But his remarks have now gotten a little off track as he's talking about a number of other issues. But I want to bring Monica Alba in because I think, Monica, one of the things that stood out most to me in what he said, particularly as it relates to this crime crackdown, is that after this operation is done in Washington, D.C., he plans to move on to other cities. And this is something that he repeatedly teases, but there isn't really the infrastructure or the ability for him to do this across the country the same way as he's doing it here in Washington.
That's right, Ryan. That is the main question here, because the reason he can do this in Washington is because it is a district, right? It isn't a state, and the 1973 Home Rule Act gives D.C. its political autonomy in terms of electing a mayor or having a city council, but it doesn't mean that the president can't federalize the police department, which is exactly what he has decided to do here, though, as you know well, Ryan, covering Congress, after 30 days, he would have to get congressional approval, or he says he could declare a national crime emergency and then perhaps justify it that way. But that's certainly something they're going to have to be talking about and deciding in a couple of weeks. But to your point about a blueprint about other cities, that does beg the question. There are so many federal agents that are involved now in this effort. We know there are hundreds of them that have been detailed from DHS, from FBI, from other agencies to be a part of the D.C. effort. So would they be perhaps sent to other cities in the same way? That is something the president has mused about, but we haven't gotten many details about just exactly how that would work. But he has mentioned other places where perhaps this would take place. And you saw there that near him was the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, who oversees the U.S. Park Police. That's the location that he went to address these law enforcement personnel and these troops that are there. And that is in Anacostia, which is in Ward 8 here in Washington, D.C., which is one of the areas that does experience more crime, according to police data and statistics, Ryan. But this is, of course, a heavily secured area where the president is speaking. But there had been some questions about whether agents had been distributed all over the district, not just to the high-traffic tourist areas like the National Mall, which we have seen, but also to some of these other areas where there has been higher crime. But just finally, on that point of the statistics, President Trump has questioned these stats that actually show D.C. is at a 30-year low for violent crime. And in fact, he has directed his Department of Justice, which announced an investigation into the potential, they argue, manipulation of those statistics. Unclear if that's the case, but they are certainly trying to make that argument here, too. Ryan.
Okay, Monica Alba will continue to monitor this event with President Trump. We'll see if he actually goes out on the road with any of these law enforcement officers or if he's just going to address them and then move on. But we appreciate that report. Coming up, what we know about why an advisor to New York Mayor Erik Adams gave a reporter a chip bag with cash inside. Plus, would you wait hours for a burger? These people did. We'll tell you why and if it was worth the payoff. Stay tuned. An advisor for New York City Mayor Erik Adams has been suspended from his re-election campaign after trying to give a local journalist a potato chip bag full of cash. You can see it here. This is fascinating. It's in a picture taken by that journalist for the city. That red envelope there reportedly included at least one $100 bill and several 20s. According to the outlet, Adams' longtime ally, Winnie Greco, asked this reporter to meet her after an event for the mayor in Harlem. When she got there, Greco offered her the bag, which the reporter says she genuinely thought was just potato chips. Greco apparently insisted she accept it. It wasn't until the reporter got to a nearby subway station that she realized what was inside and immediately texted Greco saying, "I can't take this. When can I give it back?" The outlet says its reporter did not get a response. Greco's attorney tells our New York station that the envelope was not a payoff, but instead a gesture of kindness in Chinese culture. Tom Winter is following this story for us. Tom, I've been a political reporter for a long time. I've never seen anything like this happen. It's pretty bizarre. She's already resigned her position in the mayor's office last year because she was targeted in multiple investigations, right? And now this. Get us up to speed.
That's right. This report will be all that in a bag of chips, Ryan, and forgive the dad humor, but here we go. Winnie Greco came on our radar as reporters approximately a year ago when we started hearing her name in connection with a federal criminal investigation, and then her house was searched twice by the FBI, as you mentioned, part of several probes that were ongoing at the time into the mayor's office for the city of New York. Obviously, at that point, Mayor Erik Adams was indicted, not connected at that point to Greco, and then obviously the charges against him, as we now well know, were dismissed. As far as Greco, she has not been charged with any crime. She has said over the course of the last year or so that she has not done any wrongdoing. But yesterday's incident, and you laid it out there exactly how it went down with Katie Honan, who's well known to all of us reporters who cover either City Hall or police here, this incident that occurred and now appears to be at least being looked into by the city's Department of Investigation. For folks not familiar with New York, that's kind of the Inspector General for the city, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, which apparently, according to the city, came and took that bag that we're looking at. In that investigation, there's been no indication that that's closed. So we'll see what ultimately happens here, but definitely a focus on this incident, which is quite bizarre. Greco, for her part and her attorney's part, say, look, this was a mistake, that this is a cultural thing. This was meant as a gratuity for somebody that they're friends with.
Okay, now let's move Greco aside because there's a whole different Adams advisor, his former chief advisor, who's being charged with taking more than $75,000 in bribes. Talk us through what we know about this case. And does it seem like there's a broader pattern that we're seeing here in the mayor's office?
Right. So this case appears to be narrowly focused on Ingrid Martin, who's somebody who was working for the mayor's office. Again, we should say that this is an individual who said in the past that they have not done any sort of wrongdoing. This is a state case brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. So this is not a case that is necessarily a focus, at least at the moment, of something involving the mayor's office. But I think the broader question exists. We've seen a number of high-profile lawsuits by former top members of the NYPD focusing on the police department. We've obviously had the allegations against former police commissioner Edward Caban, the Adams indictment, for which was then dismissed. So, yes, lots of questions swirling about the atmosphere of City Hall in this administration. And it's one that's certainly got reporters' attention and has got the attention of law enforcement. Ryan, we'll just see where it all goes.
At the very least, Tom, it keeps you busy. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Tom. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Let's start in our Northeast Bureau. An arrest in that sex toy throwing incident at a New York Liberty game. An Ohio man turning himself in, pleading not guilty to assault charges. Remember, an object hit a 12-year-old girl at the WNBA game a few weeks ago. It's part of a string of similar incidents with at least 3 arrests so far. Out of our Midwest Bureau, a missing service dog reunited with his owner after a 2-month search. Bam Bam ran off after someone tried to dog nap him from his Chicago area backyard. His owner has glaucoma, type 2 diabetes, and is legally blind. He never gave up searching. 2 people finally found Bam Bam this week and dropped him off at a police station. And from our Western Bureau, people in Washington lining up overnight for the first ever In-N-Out burger in that state. The West Coast fast food staple opening yesterday to hours-long lines to grab those double-doubles and animal-style fries. Several people telling our affiliate there that the wait was definitely worth it. I've had In-N-Out. It's okay. I don't know if I'd wait that long. Walmart today missing earnings expectations in the second quarter of the year. But it's not all bad news for the retailer, which reported strong sales growth and a booming online store. Contrast that with its big rival Target, which just named a new CEO in an effort to get out of a slumping sales and customer backlash to its recent rollback of DEI initiatives. So two retailers, two different strategies, all in the middle of a really choppy retail environment. Let's bring in CNBC's Melissa Repko to break this down for us. So, Melissa, this is certainly a mixed bag for Walmart with this earnings report. Try and read between the lines for us here. What is Walmart doing right, and what window is this giving us into what American consumers are thinking?
Hey, Ryan, Walmart's really in the sweet spot of what consumers are looking for right now, and that is value. It's long been known for its low prices, but it's also trying to build on that by offering more fashion-forward brands. It's offering faster deliveries, which explains why it's seen some significant online gains. Its e-commerce sales jumped by about 25% in the U.S. in this most recent quarter. And interestingly, it's been kind of taking advantage of some of the softness at Target. It's been riffing off its playbook. There's food brands that it has and clothing brands it has that look like they belong more on a Target store floor than Walmart. It's also been sprucing up its stores with renovations, trying to change that experience and attracting more high-income households.
But Walmart, though, has been hinting that it might have to increase prices. Are we seeing that happen yet?
We are seeing that happen, and I spoke to Walmart's CFO, John David Rainey, earlier today, and he acknowledged they've had to increase prices of some items. He didn't specify which items or which categories, and he did note that Walmart's been able to absorb higher tariff costs in other areas. But I actually took a firsthand look at this earlier this summer. I monitored about 50 items at a local Walmart over about 7 weeks. And I noticed some of those price increases. It's worth noting, that doesn't cover the whole country. It's just a snapshot of one store. But those prices did increase on some items, a frying pan, a pair of jeans, and a baby car seat. And it's worth noting the items where I saw jumps were often made in China, Brian.
Yeah, interesting. Walmart will tell us till they're blue in the face when they're cutting prices, but maybe not so much when they're raising prices. So that might be part of the perception there. Melissa Repko, thank you so much. Still ahead, Serena Williams gets open and honest about her weight loss journey, but she hopes people take away from her admission that being on the court wasn't enough. Tonight, tennis legend Serena Williams making a big announcement. She's on a GLP-1 weight loss drug. Williams, largely regarded as the GOAT of women's tennis, says that she struggled to lose weight from diet and exercise after having her second baby and turned to Zepbound to help. And if you're shocked, because this is a 23-time Grand Slam champ Serena Williams we're talking about, someone whose elite tennis prowess has been celebrated for years because of her strength and muscular athleticism. Well, she says she just doesn't care what people think about her body, that it's more important to be transparent. But there is also some money on the table here because Williams accessed the drug through the telehealth company Ro and is now partnering with them. Her husband, Alexis Ohanan, is also an investor in the company and serves on its board. Let's get to Ann Thompson now for more on this. So, Ann, this is a big media blitz. There's an endorsement tied to it, and it certainly has people talking. Why did she decide to do this, and how big of a deal is it to see an athlete of her stature come out and endorse a GLP-1 drug like this?
Well, she decided to talk about it, Ryan, because she's been losing weight, some 31 pounds since she had her second child. And she said she's done this by taking those weight loss drugs. Like many women who've had children after they have their children, Serena Williams, despite being that remarkable athlete with all that determination and discipline in her years of being a professional tennis player, she couldn't lose the weight. And she's gone public because she says part of her motivation is to remove the stigma that has grown up around these drugs.
A lot of people are actually on GLP-1s but don't really want to talk about it and don't really want to say it. And so I just felt like if I needed to do it, and I felt like I needed to do it because I wasn't able to lose the weight that I wanted to lose. I would always lose a lot of weight, but I would never be able to move past the marker.
And there's that big campaign you've mentioned that she started, but I think it's really got people's attention because of what she did as a professional tennis player. She was so dominant, so powerful, and that mental part of her game was such a strength. And even she couldn't defeat that opponent of creeping weight gain. Ryan?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, a big part of this going public, as you mentioned, was addressing the stigma around these drugs. But she has this partnership that involves her husband. There could be a money-making aspect of this for her. But is it really about more access for women who could benefit from these drugs?
Ryan, I don't think that's it. It will get more attention. I mean, Serena joining forces with Roe is not going to lower the prices of these drugs. And she's not the first celebrity to do that. Charles Barkley, who played in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns. He is a celebrity pitchman for Roe as well. But I think it will get women talking. Certainly we're talking about it, and that's good for the company.
Okay. Ann Thompson, thanks as always for being on that. We appreciate it. And that's a wrap for this hour. Our coverage, though, picks up right now. We are coming on the air with the latest update on the life-threatening force of Hurricane Erin, with the worst of the flooding expected to start right now and then peak in just a couple of hours. Our teams are tracking the storm. We're live in North Carolina talking to folks on the ground. Then the Menendez brothers getting their long-awaited and long-debated shot at parole, with Erik's hearing expected to happen today, and what we're learning and what's ahead for his brother Lyle tomorrow. Then President Trump just met with police and National Guard in D.C. ahead of them going on patrol tonight as part of his so-called crime crackdown. We're bringing the latest on what he told them. And the arrest of rapper Lil Nas X after he allegedly punched a police officer. The video we're just getting in of the performer early this morning walking down an L.A. street in nothing but his underwear and cowboy boots. What we're learning about the incident. And Bed Bath & Beyond attempting a comeback after filing for bankruptcy, by the company's chief is picking a fight with California in the process. That's later in the show. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm in for Hallie tonight, and right now, high tide is rising on the East Coast, bringing in dangerous coastal flooding as Hurricane Erin rips through the Atlantic Ocean. On the Outer Banks, you can see the water getting thrown over sand dunes. Those are barriers that are supposed to keep the water out. That high tide expected to make flooding there a whole lot worse. And the Northeast also dealing with coastal flooding right now. New Jersey under a state of emergency, with the governor saying absolutely no one should be in the water over the next couple of days. You can see those choppy waves violently crashing in Jersey, Virginia, Maryland. Waves getting up to 17 feet high on the Jersey shore. Then look at this in Nantucket. This wave shocking beachgoers as it's rushing in. And in Delaware and New York, water's already making its way around homes as the storm's getting closer there. We've got team coverage on all of this tonight with meteorologist Bill Cairns standing by with the latest on the forecast. But let's go right to the middle of the storm. That's where Aaron Gilchrist is standing by. He's watching all of this from North Carolina. Aaron, we caught up with you last hour. We can see those waves now are tearing it up behind you. Talk to us right now about what the Outer Banks is looking like and how folks are managing through the storm.
Well, Ryan, we actually had to move. The waves finally pushed all the way up the beach. So we're standing in the sand dunes now in a safe space so we can show you just how active this scene has gotten. It's really been busy all day long, and the waves in the last hour or so really have picked up in intensity, in ferocity. You can see that they're bigger than they have been really throughout any other point today. And we're seeing them sort of crash in a shorter cycle, if you will, coming into the shore much more frequently. We know that high tide is on its way in this area, expected to really hit around the 7 o'clock hour, although I can tell you right now we feel like it's really starting at this point. And the concern that we've heard from officials here in Dare County in particular, as we talk about Hatteras Island to our south, Ocracoke Island, is that the storm surge is still a big concern. They think 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is what they could still see in this high tide period tonight, on top of everything they've gotten really for the last 24 hours. We know that there were roads on Hatteras Island that were overtopped by water. There were sand dunes down there that were essentially punched right through by the ocean, and sand built up on roads by the foot in some cases, we were told by people who chose to stay on the island down there and deal with the storm as it's been coming through. And so there's a concern that the storm surge tonight could further complicate things, could actually be worse than what we've seen so far. And so officials here are looking out for that and are prepared to go in as soon as the weather clears up at some point tomorrow, they're hoping. At the same time, people who are here in Kill Devil Hills, where we are, folks who are in Nag's Head, have really been taking on the tourist responsibility of looking. People have been coming out, taking pictures, watching the waves, and they are shocked and amazed at how aggressive these waves have been all day today, Ryan.
And Aaron, we keep showing the pictures of these houses that are literally built on the beach. So many of them look like they're in danger of maybe not lasting through this storm surge. How concerned are officials there about these houses that are so close, even in some cases already in the water?
Well, there is some concern about that. There are some homes that have been built up on pilings for that oceanfront experience, right? We've seen that down on Hatteras Island. We also spoke to a woman who owns a motel down there, and there are a couple of cottages on that property that are sitting on pilings out in the water. We talked to her earlier today. She told us that her buildings are still there. She was really worried that they might be taken out by this storm. They are still there as of right now. But again, like I said, that high tide coming through tonight sort of reinforces the concern about structures like that. We'll be checking in with her again tomorrow, Ryan.
Okay, Aaron, great work down there. Stay safe, you and your crew. Let's now bring in meteorologist Bill Cairns to talk more about the threat of this storm. Bill, what is the path looking like, and how much more damage could it do?
Whatever happens, Ryan, is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 hours. After that, the high tide cycles will be less and less. So whatever damage is going to maximize, it's going to be occurring soon. And you can see how the water's rising already where Aaron was located. And all the pictures that we're showing you here was from the high tide this morning. And so picture all of these with the water about 2 feet higher. So that's the kind of damage that we're going to be talking about. And in some cases, that will start to approach properties and get into the bottom level of some homes and businesses, definitely washing out some roads, too. So, this is the worst of Aaron now, which is unusual because Aaron's leaving. Typically, as the storm makes its closest approach, the water's higher. So, what gives? What's different this time? So even if Aaron wasn't here, this high tide cycle was supposed to be a high one, much higher than normal, just because of the position of the moon. We have a new moon coming in on Saturday. So even without Aaron, this one was going to be high. Now that we have the storm surge of Aaron, which right now is about 2 to 3 feet in many locations, that's why this high tide cycle has all the implications of being moderate to even major flooding in coastal areas. The storm is huge, 90th percentile for hurricanes. We don't see many bigger than this. And this northeast wind on the backside is what's causing all the problems. It's very windy. The water can't escape off the coast. It just keeps piling on top of itself. And those winds are still gusting in anywhere between 30 to 45 miles per hour. And from New York City southwards down to Virginia Beach, Ryan, those are the areas of greatest concern. And even tomorrow, rip currents are going to be a problem all the way up and down these beaches. It may not be till the end of the weekend that some people are allowed back in.
Okay, Bill Cairns, thank you for the update. In the last half hour or so, President Trump visited National Guard troops and police in D.C. before they went to patrol the streets here in Washington. Remember, this is all part of his own so-called crime crackdown in the nation's capital. The White House reports over 600 arrests since the start of the operation earlier this month. Let's get right to Monica Alba, who's tracking the president's movement tonight. So, Monica, this does seem like a bit of a PR stunt. We saw the president speak. He talked a lot about other campaign promises that he claims that he's fulfilled. But should we take this visit as a signal to his commitment to keep the Guard and this beefed-up law enforcement presence here in Washington longer than we may even anticipate?
I think that's fair, Ryan, and I think that's bolstered by the actions that this administration has taken in the last couple of days, which is to bring additional troops from other states, other National Guardsmen and women to this assignment and telling them, in effect, that it's unclear how long this will last. In the words of the Pentagon Secretary, Pete Hegseth, he said this could be weeks, this could be months, it could be longer. The president would have to have some kind of a justification, like a national emergency, to extend that or congressional approval beyond beyond the 30 days, and we're about halfway to that point almost, in order to see whether this is extended or whether this could perhaps even go to other cities, which is something he has also talked about. But this was an opportunity from the White House for the president to go and directly meet with law enforcement, directly meet with these troops. And I'm told by White House officials the president was very eager to do that. We saw Vice President Vance out doing that yesterday around Union Station, where he was met with some protesters and hecklers because, of course, he was in some public areas. This was a different kind of visit for President Trump. He was at a Park Police headquarters in Southeast D.C. in a heavily secured area where he was able to come face to face and bring some hamburgers and pizza to the law enforcement personnel and troops that were assembled there that then will go out on patrol this evening. But President Trump will not be a part of that, despite saying earlier he was maybe going to be doing that. Instead, he did this brief remarks and greeting with the law enforcement personnel. And of course, he was there with some of his cabinet members, again, trying to show this is a broad whole of government approach to this issue. Ryan.
And Monica, there was other news that involved the president today, this appeals court ruling in New York in his favor related to the fraud judgment against him in the state there. The president addressed that. What did he say, and were there any other key takeaways from what he said at the event?
Yeah, and the president had said earlier today that this was a, quote, total victory, but it's not quite that simple because as a part of this lengthy 320-page opinion, there was a deeply divided set of judges and rulings here on some of this. But that big takeaway, which is what the president talked about, is the fact that this civil fraud penalty case that, of course, remember, there was a month-long trial, is in effect being, altered in some respects, but he still is facing and liable. And so is the Trump Organization and his two sons on some of the other aspects. But the president was bragging about the positive result for him from this more complex piece during those remarks as well. Ryan.
Okay. Monica Alba, thank you for that. Right now, two of the country's biggest states are battling to reshape politics here in Washington, with California Democrats firing back at Republicans in Texas for passing a bill in their state house meant to strip Democrats of 5 House seats and give them to the GOP. There's a live look right now at the state capitol in California, where lawmakers are on track to cancel out those GOP gains, voting any minute on a special election that could net Democrats 5 House seats before the midterms. Remember, Texas Republicans pushed through a Trump-approved congressional map, which could see final passage in their state Senate in just a few hours from now. And we're already starting to see the impacts take effect, with some Democrats in Texas just tapping out. We're learning tonight that Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett says that he'll retire unless the courts overturn this new map. Dana Griffin is at the California Capitol now. So, Dana, what happened there on the floor, and when can we expect this vote?
Yeah, so the Assembly has officially completed passing all 3 of the bills. The bills are now with the Senate. They are currently discussing right now. They are on the last of this trio of bills that would ultimately lead to the governor signing. So we know that a lot of Democrats have already left from the Assembly, heading to the area where Governor Gavin Newsom is expected to sign these bills. We know he wants to do it as quickly as possible. So if they can get through this in a matter of hours, then we could likely see California joining Texas with changing these congressional maps to favor either Republicans at the U.S. House for Texas and here in California wanting to send those Democrats to California. But like you mentioned, this is ultimately in the hands of the voters. So this special election will likely happen come November, and we'll make it all official here in just a matter of hours. Ryan?
And Dana, as this redistricting war heats up, it does kind of feel like the kind of thing that just turns people off from politics, right? A new national Reuters Ipsos poll shows that most people think that this kind of the gaming of the system, it's bad for democracy. They don't, and they are opposed to it. Even though voters are not in favor of this, these states just keep moving forward and heading down this path. What do you think the reason is that they're so insistent on changing these maps?
I think it boils down to influence. It boils down to power and who controls it. And you've got, leaders like Governor Gavin Newsom, who has been very fiery lately, going after President Trump, and Texas Republicans. And so you have sort of this fight in people who want to show it, and they're not willing to just sit back and relax on this. And even Republicans here in California are warning other states that if you fight fire with fire, you're ultimately going to burn it down. We've seen several other states wanting to join this redistricting push, and you can see some of them on the screen there. You've got for Republicans, Missouri, Florida, Indiana, and also to add some potential Democratic a favor here, you've got Illinois, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland all kind of potentially joining this redistricting war. But today, it starts with Texas and California, who are both on track to get to where they are trying to go here. Brian?
Okay. Dana Griffin, thank you for that update from California. We appreciate it. We could learn today whether one of the Menendez brothers will be able to walk free after spending 3 decades behind bars for the brutal murder of his parents. A parole hearing for Erik Menendez, that's the brother you see on your left side of the screen, is expected to be happening today to decide his fate. And in less than 24 hours from now, we could know whether his brother Lyle Menendez will be granted or denied the same opportunity. Remember, 36 years ago, that Erik and Lyle Menendez shot their parents to death in their Beverly Hills home. It was a huge story at the time. The brothers say they did it because they feared for their lives after years of abuse at the hands of their father. But to this day, prosecutors just don't buy that. They say the brothers did it because they wanted their parents' money. Today's decision has been years in the making, and it comes with a new wave of support after several shows and documentaries put the brothers' names back in the headlines. But behind the scenes, the brothers and their lawyers, they've been working the legal system for quite some time, making moves on several different options that could allow Erik and Lyle Menendez to one day walk free. One of these options are these parole hearings. There's another, a new trial, but the Los Angeles district attorney has come out strongly opposing that move. And lastly, there's the clemency option. That would be granted by California's Governor Gavin Newsom. We have team coverage on this story. Danny Savalos will break down the legal side of all of this, but let's start with Camila Bernal. She's following the story for us from L.A. So, Camila, we kind of thought we'd know the outcome here by now. Is there a possibility that this could bleed into tomorrow?
It is possible. A spokesperson for the Department of Corrections, Ryan, said that it could bleed into tomorrow, especially because there's about 20 or so people that want to speak on behalf of the brothers. They're supposed to be the family members of the victims, but of course, they're also the family members of Erik and Lyle, and they have no time limit whatsoever in terms of when they speak. And so the officer for the Department of Corrections what he said was that it's possible that it goes on until tomorrow, but they have Lyle tomorrow. So he also said they likely are going to want to wrap this up today in order to do Lyle's hearing tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. We're now 6+ hours into this. They had said that the average parole hearing would last between 2 to 3 hours. This is clearly not your average parole hearing. We knew that members of the board would question Erik today, and we anticipate that that is essentially what happened or what is happening today. They were supposed to question the brother on a number of different aspects, not just about the crime itself and what was going on at the time of the crime, but also everything that's happened since the crime. They're looking at how the brothers have rehabilitated or whether they have rehabilitated and what they've done. They're looking at the good and the bad. The DA has pointed out multiple times that there's a lot of bad here. They say that they had used cell phones, that they've gotten into fights, that they have a number of things that they did wrong during the time that they've been in prison. But also you hear from the family members and from the brothers' attorneys who say that they help other inmates, that they're trying to mentor people, that they've done work in some of the green spaces at the prison. So you, of course, have both of these sides, the DA's office trying to argue that they do not deserve to be free. And you have all these family members, around 20 of them. And like I said, they have no time limit, but they are likely going to argue that these brothers need to be released at this point, that they have served those 36 years. We'll see what the parole board decides, Ryan.
But even if that decision does come down today and it's a yes, that doesn't mean that Erik's going to walk free tonight, right? There's still more that has to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot more that has to happen because there's 120 days of review that the board chief counsel has. And so that still means about 4 months. And then Governor Gavin Newsom has 30 days to review all of this. We've talked about the possibility of clemency. So Governor Gavin Newsom could say the word and essentially they would be free tomorrow if that's what the governor wanted. But if he wants to allow this process to play out, then it could be 4, maybe 5 months before they even are allowed to walk free. If the board approves this parole, of course, they could deny it. And if they do deny it, then they would have the possibility to maybe in a few years request another hearing for parole. So we'll see what happens. Everybody is sort of crossing their fingers that we get a decision today. But of course, we've been waiting all day long, Ryan.
All right. And Camila, you'll stay on it for us. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Let's talk more about the legal side of all of this. We'll bring in Danny Savalas. So, Danny, we know that the Los Angeles District Attorney has been really opposed to this. Talk about how that had weighed more or less than some of the other things the board was considering as it makes this decision.
It certainly weighs significantly that the DA himself is not backing this bid for parole. While it's helpful that members of the family are supporting the Menendez brothers, especially in light of the fact that the victims were their family members, that's not going to be as significant as the fact that the DA is opposing this parole. And in addition, California publishes statistics, and just anybody walking into a parole hearing generally has about a 35% chance, which really isn't that high, although it is higher than it has been in past years. So the odds are against the Menendez brothers, but the board will be looking at rehabilitation and whether they accept responsibility for what they did. And all indications are they will say that they did, but parole boards hear a lot of words. They do a lot of their own assessment of other contextual features.
It does seem that parole is probably their best option here. Clemency, there's some chance, but Gavin Newsom doesn't appear to be that open to it. They've been very opposed to a new trial. The prosecutors have. Let's say all these paths are denied. Is there any other recourse the brothers have at this point? And what would you tell them if you were their defense attorney?
Sure, they're still going for their habeas petition based on the newly discovered evidence. I can tell you, having filed a lot of these, they have about a 1 to 5% chance of success. They're very rare, but I mean, that's also because you have a lot of desperate habeas petitions that really don't have any legitimate basis. So they are often flooding the courts with those, often written pro se from prison. But all that being said, their habeas petition would be the most challenging. You see the resentencing. The judge right there on the screen, when they were resentenced, that's what made them eligible for parole. That's the process they're in right now. But by the way, both resentencing and the parole hearing and clemency, the middle and the right that you see there, those are kind of the same thing. I say kind of because if they are recommended for parole, it will go to guess where? The governor's office. He can veto it. He can modify it. He can do virtually anything. So in a sense, both clemency, a pardon and a commutation, or the parole process, they both end at the same place. That's Governor Newsom's office.
So he still has a big decision here. All right, Danny Savalas, thank you so much. Meanwhile, President Trump backing away from those sweeping tariffs on the EU that he's been threatening, instead of hitting the block with 15% tariffs on lumber, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. And while that's certainly easing the fear of a full-blown trade war with Europe, it still runs the risk of pushing high prices even higher. And this is happening as Jay Powell heads to Jackson Hole, Wyoming for his last Federal Reserve Symposium as chairman, where all eyes and ears are on exactly what he's going to say in his speech, as he and the Fed are under intense public pressure from the president to cut interest rates and ease inflation. Let's bring in Christine Romans. Christine, Jay Powell has got a lot to juggle here: jobs numbers, inflation, trade. The New York Times put a finer point on it today with its headline. It said, quote, Powell is on the cusp of taking a big gamble with the U.S. economy, walking this line between setting up a rate cut and he's looking like he's giving in to the president. Christine, he's done a pretty good job of not taking the bait from Donald Trump. Could that be different this time around? What are we expecting from this speech?
Certainly a lot of distraction as those Fed members head there to Jackson Hole. I mean, the meetings get underway officially tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and they're all heading there as there's this drama about one of the Fed governors who the president's federal housing chief says needs to resign because of what he alleges is mortgage fraud. I mean, there's just a lot happening here. And they're on the cusp, I think, of being ready to cut interest rates. You know, they're worried about the labor market weakening. They're watching some of these consumer numbers that show that the consumers may be pulling back a little bit or a little more concerned because of higher prices and uncertainty. At the same time, they're worried about inflation. So it really is a very, very, very tricky moment for the Fed. It would be without all of this political noise and distraction, and you've got that on top of it.
And on the tariff front, we talked about this whole taco phenomenon, as it's called. Trump always chickens out. Are these lower tariffs chickening out, or could they be a win for American consumers?
Well, certainly a 15% tariff on pharmaceuticals is way better than the 200 or 250% tariff that he had threatened, right? So he really did back down from those worst tariff levels. But that being said, a lot of pharmaceuticals, most pharmaceuticals are made overseas, and the president wants to put pressure on companies to make them in the United States for obvious reasons, from national security and supply chain, resiliency and the like. Is it a win for American consumers? I'll tell you what is sort of brilliant from the Trump strategy here. If you had told anyone 8 months ago that there would be a new 15% tariff on everything coming in from Europe, that would have been shocking and would have been terrible for all parties involved, right? Now he has backed off of the worst threats, and it's 15%, and that's seen as a relief. So in a way, a lot of Trump, people who understand the Trump thinking say he's winning on this. He's getting people to accept a 15% flat tariff as a successful end to the negotiation.
Okay, Christine Romans, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Later in the show, rapper Lil Nas X arrested after he was seen walking in his underwear down an L.A. street. Police say he punched an officer when they tried to detain him. And it's a bird, it's a plane, it's a burrito? How Chipotle is stepping up its delivery game. Number one, a New York appeals court today throwing out the $500 million civil fraud penalty against President Trump. Remember, the president and his companies were fined for allegedly overvaluing their assets and financial statements in a lawsuit brought by the New York Attorney General. While some of the judges agreed that Mr. Trump engaged in fraud, they called the fine itself, quote, excessive. The president called it a total victory in what he calls the fake Letitia James case. James, though, says her office will appeal the ruling. Number two, tense moments on the campus of Villanova University outside of Philadelphia. Reports of an active shooter sending law enforcement streaming in this afternoon. People were told to shelter in place, but no one was hurt. Pennsylvania's governor and the school president tonight confirming everything as a hoax. Number three, Delta and United Airlines facing lawsuits over window seats. The proposed class actions claim people paid extra to have a view or for other reasons, only to find themselves looking at a blank wall. The complaints seek millions in damages. Delta and United did not immediately respond to our requests for comment. And number four, a new era in food delivery, kind of. Starting today, people around the Dallas area can get their Chipotle delivered via drone. They're teaming up with the drone delivery company Zipline, calling the venture Zipotle. Chipotle's president tells CNBC it's part of a push to attract younger customers. I'm sure my daughter's paying close attention. And number five, stocks for Cracker Barrel taking a dive, falling by more than 7% after unveiling a controversial new logo. You see their old logo on the left. This is the new one here on the right. They got rid of the barrel. Well, it's part of the company's modern makeover, also revamping the menu and redecorating the interiors. Cracker Barrel says the new logo is, quote, rooted even more closely to the iconic barrel shape. Okay. Now to the new fight out in California, with Bed Bath & Beyond tonight saying the state will not be part of the company's comeback from bankruptcy. The executive chairman calling it, in his words, one of the most overregulated, expensive, and risky environments for business. And now California's governor is responding, saying, quote, after their bankruptcy and closure of every store, like most Americans, we thought Bed Bath & Beyond no longer existed. We wish them well in their efforts to remain relevant again as they try to open a second store. I want to bring in Scott Budman with our NBC Bay Area affiliate KNTV, who's been following the story. So, Scott, talk to me about why this bloodbath between Bed Bath & Beyond and Gavin Newsom has gotten so bad and how it's affecting the business landscape in places like California.
Yeah, Ryan, you know, like so many discussions that find their way to social media, this got contentious really quickly. Bed Bath & Beyond, the retailer that a couple of years ago filed Chapter 11 and went out of business, closing all of its stores, saying it wants to make a comeback both in the online and the retail world, but will not, according to that chairman, do so in California. No new stores in California. He took to Twitter to point out that our state has too high of a minimum wage, too much regulation, and pays far too many taxes. A very pointed bar, both at our governor and our way of doing business out here. And it escalated from there with Governor Newsom's team coming online to talk about their relevance. Californians will still be able to go online and shop at Bed Bath & Beyond when those stores roll out sometime in the next year or so. But we are not expected to have any retail stores, despite the fact that we are the fourth largest economy in the world, just in the state of California, and that we have so many well-heeled customers. It's very rare for a retail store to open up anything and not do so in California. But we'll see how it works for Bed Bath & Beyond, and we expect more back and forth on Twitter as this continues. Ryan?
Okay, Scott Budman with our affiliate KNTV. Scott, thanks so much. Back to some breaking news on a story that we've been following in just the last few minutes. The California State Senate passing a package to put Democratic-drawn congressional maps on a special election ballot this fall. Remember, this would add 5 blue seats to Congress to offset the 5 GOP seats Texas just pushed through with their new map. We'll be following the story closely. We'll bring you any updates as it heads to the governor's desk. And nearly half of all doctors in the U.S. say they are experiencing burnout, and some say they're seriously considering leaving the field. But now, artificial intelligence has made its way into doctors' offices to help physicians with their cumbersome workload. NBC's medical reporter, Dr. Ashke Sal, takes us inside the exam room to show how one simple tool is giving doctors back their time and their connections with patients.
Hey, how are you?
Inside this hospital in Boston, a quiet revolution is underway. It's not a new drug or a breakthrough procedure. It's artificial intelligence, used to fight doctor burnout.
Many clinicians feel completely overwhelmed.
Nearly half of all physicians are reporting at least one symptom of burnout. And a 2023 survey found that 2 out of 5 doctors say they would consider leaving within the next 2 years.
Is it okay if I use the iPad to listen to our visit and help me write my note today? All right.
Dr. Rebecca Mishuris is the Chief Medical Information Officer and primary care doctor at Mass General Brigham, and an early adopter of a new artificial intelligence tool designed not to replace doctors, but to help them stay in the job.
In medicine, there's a phrase, pajama time, right? Time we spend outside of the clinic at our home, doing things like charts and notes. How much has that changed as a result of this product?
So for me personally, I have no more pajama time.
None?
None. My notes are done when I walk out of clinic at this point.
The technology is called ambient documentation. It listens during the visit, transcribes a conversation, and drafts a summary note.
How can technology actually work to fight burnout?
And the magic of this is that it happens in almost real time. It's recorded, and literally within 20 or 30 seconds, the draft note appears for the clinician.
Until now, right, really hasn't been a clear intervention that can dramatically reduce burnout.
And now these AI scribes are becoming more common across the nation, from doctors in California to Georgia to here in Boston, all saving countless hours for doctors at the brink. And they're seeing staggering results. In new data just published today, the AI scribes were linked with a 21% reduction in burnout at Mass General Brigham.
Do you find like it's brought you back to the reason you wanted to be a doctor in the first place?
It really has. I have joy back in caring for my patients because I can just sit and listen to them and work with them to figure out what is going on and what we should do next.
Patients like Sharon Hinton don't mind an extra presence in the room, even if it's a computer.
I had more control over what was actually going into the record, and she let me see it. It was cool.
Did you ever think that you would have artificial intelligence inside the doctor's office?
Not really, but kind of, because I'm from the generation, we had the Jetsons and robots and Star Trek. So we're the generation that dreamed that it might happen someday.
For doctors and patients alike, it's helping medicine feel a little more human again. Dr. Akshay Sayal, NBC News, Boston.
And after the break, an advisor to the New York City mayor under fire for giving a journalist a potato chip bag full of cash. How the mayor's responding tonight. And the emotional reunion of a service dog with his owner after the pooch went missing for more than a month. How Bam Bam got home safe. An advisor for New York City Mayor Erik Adams has been suspended from his re-election campaign after trying to give a local journalist a potato chip bag full of cash. You can see it here. This is fascinating. It's in a picture taken by that journalist for the city. That red envelope there reportedly included at least one $100 bill and several 20s. According to the outlet, Adams' longtime ally, Winnie Greco, asked this reporter to meet her after an event for the mayor in Harlem. When she got there, Greco offered her the bag, which the reporter says she genuinely thought was just potato chips. Greco apparently insisted she accept it. It wasn't until the reporter got to a nearby subway station that she realized what was inside and immediately texted Greco saying, "I can't take this. When can I give it back?" The outlet says its reporter did not get a response. Greco's attorney tells our New York station that the envelope was not a payoff, but instead a gesture of kindness in Chinese culture. Tom Winter is following this story for us. Tom, I've been a political reporter for a long time. I've never seen anything like this happen. It's pretty bizarre. She's already resigned her position in the mayor's office last year because she was targeted in multiple investigations, right? And now this. Get us up to speed.
That's right. This report will be all that in a bag of chips, Ryan, and forgive the dad humor, but here we go. Winnie Greco came on our radar as reporters approximately a year ago when we started hearing her name in connection with a federal criminal investigation, and then her house was searched twice by the FBI, as you mentioned, part of several probes that were ongoing at the time into the mayor's office for the city of New York. Obviously, at that point, Mayor Erik Adams was indicted, not connected at that point to Greco, and then obviously the charges against him, as we now well know, were dismissed. As far as Greco, she has not been charged with any crime. She has said over the course of the last year or so that she has not done any wrongdoing. But yesterday's incident, and you laid it out there exactly how it went down with Katie Honan, who's well known to all of us reporters who cover either City Hall or police here. This incident that occurred and now appears to be at least being looked into by the city's Department of Investigation. For folks not familiar with New York, that's kind of the Inspector General for the city, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, which apparently, according to the city, came and took that bag that we're looking at. In that investigation, there's been no indication that that's closed. So we'll see what ultimately happens here, but definitely a focus on this incident, which is quite bizarre. Greco, for her part and her attorney's part, say, look, this was a mistake, that this is a cultural thing. This was meant as a gratuity for somebody that they're friends with.
Okay, now let's move Greco aside because there's a whole different Adams advisor, his former chief advisor, who's being charged with taking more than $75,000 in bribes. Talk us through what we know about this case, and does it seem like there's a broader pattern that we're seeing here in the mayor's office?
Right. So this case appears to be narrowly focused on Ingrid Martin, who's somebody who was working for the mayor's office. Again, and we should say that this is an individual who said in the past that they have not done any sort of wrongdoing. This is a state case brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. So this is not a case that is necessarily a focus, at least at the moment, of something involving the mayor's office. But I think the broader question exists. We've seen a number of high-profile lawsuits by former top members of the NYPD focusing on the police department. We've obviously had the allegations against former police commissioner Edward Caban, the Adams indictment for which was then dismissed. So, yes, lots of questions swirling about the atmosphere of City Hall in this administration. And it's one that's certainly got reporters' attention and has got the attention of law enforcement. Ryan, we'll just see where it all goes.
At the very least, Tom, it keeps you busy. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Tom. NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Let's start in our Northeast Bureau. An arrest in that sex toy throwing incident at a New York Liberty game. An Ohio man turning himself in, pleading not guilty to assault charges. Remember, an object hit a 12-year-old girl at the WNBA game a few weeks ago. It's part of a string of similar incidents with at least 3 arrests so far. Out of our Midwest Bureau, a missing service dog reunited with his owner after a 2-month search. Bam Bam ran off after someone tried to dog-nap him from his Chicago area backyard. His owner has glaucoma, type 2 diabetes, and is legally blind. He never gave up searching. 2 people finally found Bam Bam this week and dropped him off at a police station. And from our Western Bureau, people in Washington lining up overnight for the first ever In-N-Out burger in that state. The West Coast fast food staple opening yesterday to hours-long lines to grab those double-doubles and animal-style fries. Several people telling our affiliate there that the wait was definitely worth it. Still ahead, Serena Williams gets open and honest about her weight loss journey, but she hopes people take away from her admission that being on the court wasn't enough. Tonight, tennis legend Serena Williams making a big announcement. She's on a GLP-1 weight loss drug. Williams, largely regarded as the GOAT of women's tennis, says that she struggled to lose weight from diet and exercise after having her second baby and turned to Zepbound to help. And if you're shocked, because this is a 23-time Grand Slam champ Serena Williams we're talking about, someone whose elite tennis prowess has been celebrated for years because of her strength and muscular athleticism. Well, she says she just doesn't care what people think about her body, that it's more important to be transparent. But there is also some money on the table here because Williams accessed the drug through the telehealth company Ro and is now partnering with them. Her husband, Alexis Ohanan, is also an investor in the company and serves on its board. Let's get to Ann Thompson now for more on this. So, Ann, this is a big media blitz. There's an endorsement tied to it, and it certainly has people talking. Why did she decide to do this, and how big of a deal is it to see an athlete of her stature come out and endorse a GLP-1 drug like this?
Well, she decided to talk about it, Ryan, because she's been losing weight, some 31 pounds since she had her second child. And she said she's done this by taking those weight loss drugs. Like many women who've had children after they have their children, Serena Williams, despite being that remarkable athlete with all that determination and discipline in her years of being a professional tennis player, she couldn't lose the weight. And she's gone public because she says part of her motivation is to remove the stigma that has grown up around these drugs.
A lot of people are actually on GLP-1s, but don't really want to talk about it and don't really want to say it. And so I just felt like if I needed to do it, and I felt like I needed to do it because I wasn't able to lose the weight that I wanted to lose. I would always lose a lot of weight, but I would never be able to move past the marker.
And there's that big campaign you've mentioned that she started, but I think it's really got people's attention because of what she did as a professional tennis player. She was so dominant, so powerful, and that mental part of her game was such a strength, and even she couldn't defeat that opponent of creeping weight gain. Ryan?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, a big part of this going public, as you mentioned, was addressing the stigma around these drugs. But she has this partnership that involves her husband. There could be a money-making aspect of this for her. But is it really about more access for women who could benefit from these drugs?
You know, Ryan, I don't think that's it. It will get more attention. I mean, Serena joining forces with Roe is not going to lower the prices of these drugs. And she's not the first celebrity to do that. Charles Barkley, who played in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns, he is a celebrity pitchman for Roe as well. So, but I think it will get women talking. Certainly we're talking about it, and that's good for the company.
Okay. Ann Thompson, thanks as always for being on that. We appreciate it. And that's a wrap for this hour. Our coverage, though, picks up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.